Now, today I want to read from you from the book of Matthew chapter 14. Now, Matthew chapter 14 contains four very significant events. Verses 1 through 12 of Matthew 14 tells the story of how that John the Baptizer, who was a cousin of Jesus, was beheaded by King Herod. Verses 13 through 21 tells the story of how that Jesus performed the miracle of feeding 5,000 men plus women and children. And verses 22 through 33 tells the story of how that Jesus came walking on the water toward a boat carrying the apostles who had found themselves in a storm. This story actually has two miracles in it. The first was Jesus walking on the water, and the second was how that Jesus allowed Peter to also walk on the water. And finally, verses 34 through 36 tells the story of more miracles that was performed by Jesus. Matthew chapter 14 contains accounts of one horrible event and two accounts of well-known miracles and one account of more miracles that I would venture to say that very few who are listening to this message right now would be able to name. In fact, in the more than 50 years that I have been a Christian, I don't remember a single time that I've heard these particular miracles performed by Jesus, preached about, or taught about. Now, in just a minute, I'm going to read for you the account of those little-known miracles, but first, I want to give you the title of my message today. The title of my message today is this: Let's talk about miracles. Let's talk about miracles. Now, you all know about the big miracles. You all know about the miracle of Jesus feeding the 5,000 using just a little boy's lunch of 5 loaves and 2 fish. You all know about the miracle of Jesus and Peter walking on the water. But now let me read for you Matthew's account of what I believe could be described as some of Jesus' most fantastic miracles that no one remembers. We've all read Matthew chapter 14, but I submit to you that it is possible that in the amazement of the big miracles, we might have missed what happened after that boat that the apostles were riding in that night got to shore. Let me read it for you. Matthew chapter 14, verses 34 through 36. Now remember, Matthew records that this happened immediately after the boat carrying the apostles and Jesus got to the shore. Verse 34. When they had crossed over, they came to the shore of Gennesaret. Now when the men of that place recognized him, they alerted the whole vicinity and brought to him all who were sick. They begged him that they might only touch the end of his robe, and as many as touched it were healed. Did you catch that? The boat got to the shore, and some of the men who were on the shore recognized Jesus, and those men ran around the whole area telling everyone that Jesus was there, and everyone who came to Jesus and just touched the end of his clothes were healed. Okay, be honest now. We all know about the woman who had the issue of blood healed when she touched the hem of Jesus' clothes. But how many already knew that there was another touch Jesus' clothes and be healed story in the Bible? Let's talk about miracles today. Let's talk about miracles. To the reading of the word of the Lord today, I say amen and amen. Today, I sincerely pray that my imperfect ministry can in some small way do justice to the perfect words found in the Holy Bible. Amen. Amen. Let's talk about miracles. In just a little under 2 weeks, we will celebrate the birth of Jesus. We call the holiday Christmas. Jesus Christ, the Son of God, God manifest in the flesh, came to this earth as a baby, human being, male child. Now, we know that the baby Jesus was a very special baby. But after Jesus was born, when Mary and Joseph would take Jesus out among the people, they looked at Jesus just like they did any other human being, male child. Now, we like to believe that the baby Jesus was the most angelic looking baby ever, born to a woman. At least that's what all of the artists' renderings that we've seen show us. But you know, it is entirely possible that baby Jesus was not the most precious looking baby in town. It could be that when Mary would pull back that blanket and show Jesus to someone, they would jump back, not because of his glorious appearance, but because he might have been an ugly baby. Now, I'm not trying to be sacrilegious or disrespectful to God, but you don't know. No one's ever seen a picture of Jesus when he was a baby. He might have been an ugly baby. Now, it could have been when Jesus was a child or a teenager, he looked so much like the other kids that he was not very remarkable. We don't know. There is one thing about the way Jesus looked that I believe we are told. In Matthew chapter 26, we're told that Jesus and most of his disciples are at the Garden of Gethsemane. And we know that Judas has agreed to betray Jesus. Here's what Matthew writes, verse number 47. While Jesus was still speaking, Judas, one of the 12, suddenly arrived. A large mob with swords and clubs was with him from the chief priests and elders of the people. His betrayer had given them a sign. The one I kiss, he's the one, arrest him. So immediately he went up to Jesus and said, "Greetings, Rabbi," and kissed him. "Friend," Jesus asked him, "why have you come?" Then they came up and took hold of Jesus and arrested him. Now the point here is that Jesus must have looked so much like the other men there that Judas had to kiss him so that the high priest's servants would know who to arrest. When you talk about Jesus' 3.5 years of public ministry on this earth, there is no reason to take note of how Jesus looked. Because apparently, the way that Jesus looked did not set him apart from everyone else. But there was something that set Jesus apart in every crowd that Jesus found himself standing in. And that something is that everywhere that Jesus went, he performed miraculous acts. The crowds didn't follow Jesus because of his looks. The crowds didn't follow Jesus because of his political standing in the land. The crowds didn't follow Jesus because he was wealthy. For the most part, the crowds followed Jesus around because he performed miracles. Jesus Christ was a miracle working machine. Amen. Now, if you ask Google how many miracles did Jesus perform while he walked the earth, it will tell you that Jesus performed 37 recorded miracles on earth. And it goes on to note that the Bible also indicates that Jesus performed many more miracles that are not explicitly written down. In fact, John wrote in John chapter 21 and verse number 25, "And there are so many other things that Jesus did, which if every one of them were written down, I suppose not even the world itself could contain the books that would be written." The title of my message today is Let's Talk About Miracles. And one of the things that we associate with Jesus was that he performed many miracles while he walked on the earth. And some believe, including me, that Jesus still performs miracles today. Amen. So let's talk about miracles. Webster Dictionary defines a miracle as an extraordinary event manifesting divine intervention in human affairs. A miracle is an extraordinary event manifesting divine intervention in human affairs. Now, I predict that when you heard that definition, first of all, you agreed with it. And second, the words that stuck in your mind when you heard that definition were extraordinary and divine. And all of us who have had God perform a miracle in our life would agree that the miracle was divine. It came from God. And that it was extraordinary because it was an act that was way beyond ordinary. But since we're talking about miracles today, let me point your attention to a word in that definition of the word miracle that might make you think a little bit. A miracle is defined as an extraordinary event manifesting divine intervention in human affairs. And the word that I want you to notice today is the word intervention. 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 The word intervention means the act of interfering with the outcome or course, especially of a condition or process. So let's reason this out together. If a miracle that God performs is an extraordinary event manifesting intervention in a human's life, and since we're talking about miracles today that God performs, let me show you something about the miracles that Jesus performed that you might have never considered. In all of the 37 miracles that Jesus performed, every single one of them resulted in a connection being made by Jesus with someone or groups of someones. Now, in the text I read for you, Matthew recorded that Jesus connected with Peter on the Sea of Galilee when he gave Peter the miracle of being able to walk on water to connect with Jesus. Now, in that same text, when Jesus came to the shore at the town of Gennesaret, the men on the shore recognized Jesus, and then they went all around that area, gathering up everyone who needed a miracle. And Matthew tells us that everyone who touched the clothes that Jesus was wearing received the miracle of healing. On the Sea of Galilee, Jesus performed a miracle to connect with one person, Peter. In the town of Gennesaret, Jesus performed miracles that connected him to many people. Considering the accounts of miracles performed in the Bible and the miracles that God has performed for me and for my family, I have to conclude that when God performs miracles, it is not just a happen chance, it is not a coincidental event or a fluke. God performs miracles for mankind on purpose so that we will be encouraged to connect with Him. John chapter 4 tells the story of a day in the life of Jesus when he has come to Jacob's well. And while Jesus was resting on the well, a Samaritan woman came to the well to draw up some water. Now, you should know that the Jews in that day did not associate with Samaritans. In fact, when you read the story, Jesus sent all 12 of his disciples into town to a local McDonald's to buy quarter pounder with cheese meals for everyone. And I believe that Jesus did that because he needed to connect with that Samaritan woman. And having his Jewish disciples around might create a problem. Now, I'm not going to take the time to read that story today. You should read John chapter 4 for yourself sometime. But here's what I want to tell you about it. While Jesus was talking with the Samaritan woman, Jesus performed the miracle of revealing to her that he knew all of her sin and that she had committed. And then Jesus offered her the miracle of living water that only he could give to her. What you need to consider about this story is that Jesus, I believe, wanted to connect with the Samaritan woman first of all, to reach her personally. And Jesus wanted to reach into Samaria because John wrote that this happened, John 4 verses 28 through 30. When the woman left her water jar, went into town, and told the people, "Come and see a man who told me everything I ever did. Could this be the Messiah?" They left the town and made their way to him. When Jesus performed miracles that we read about in the Bible, whether it was raising Lazarus from the dead or telling a Samaritan woman that he knows all about her, every miracle, whether we categorize it as small or great, every miracle that Jesus performed was on purpose. And every miracle that Jesus performed was to connect with someone. When you think about it, every Bible-believing Christian gets reconnected with God when we read in the Bible about the miracles that God performed. Amen? Amen. We're talking about miracles today. And let me tell you this. I believe that if we are not careful, mankind will risk becoming disconnected from our God because we fail to see the miracles that God performs for us that stare us right in the face every day. Here's what I mean. We live in an age where technology has reached amazing heights. Take a cellular phone, for instance. I was telling someone the other day that my first cellular phone was a bag phone. I literally carried a bag the size of a medium-sized woman's purse around with me, and I didn't care what it looked like because I had the amazing wonder of a phone that I could call someone on that was not attached to a wall jack right in that bag. I couldn't use it to access the internet. I couldn't use it for GPS. I couldn't play a game on it. I couldn't use it as a notepad. All that I could do with my cellular phone was make and receive phone calls. And if I got more than about a mile out of town, I was roaming. Some of you know what I'm talking about there. That Motorola bag phone was an amazing wonder to me. With it, I made and I received phone calls. But I don't have a bag cellular phone today. I have this. And the fact is that until I put this message together, I haven't once even thought about the wonder that I can make and receive phone calls with it. It has become so normal. It has become so commonplace, so ordinary that I no longer connect with the wonder of it. We're talking about miracles from God today, and let me say this again. I believe that if we're not careful, mankind will risk becoming disconnected from our God because we fail to see the miracles that God performs for us that stare us right in the face every day. Oh, sure. We really connect with God when He performs a miracle for us that would be considered amazing, like a miracle of healing. But I submit to you today that it's possible. If we are not careful for us because we have become so used to miracles that we experience in our life daily, we might not notice the miracles that God gives to us because He still desires to connect with us. In fact, there are two things happening in your life right now at this moment that are amazing miracles from God. In the time it took me to make that last statement, you experienced about 10 involuntary heartbeats, and you took about 2 involuntary breaths of air into and out of your lungs. Now, I hope you noticed that I used the word involuntary, which means done without will or conscious control, to describe the functions of your heart and lungs. Without the involuntary functions, without the amazing, miraculous miracles of our hearts beating in our chest and our lungs pulling in fresh air and pushing out used air, our human body ceases to live. I don't believe that I need to convince anyone listening to this message of this, but the involuntary functions of our heart and lungs happens because God makes it happen. I'm talking about miracles that God performs today, and you talk about fantastic, wonderful miracles. You talk about amazing miracles that God performs. The miracles of our heart beating and our lungs working are miracles that we experience in our life every second of every day. In fact, without those two miracles, we would never experience another miracle from God, because dead people don't experience miracles. I said a few minutes ago that God performs miracles because he desires to connect with us. God gives to us the miracle of a heartbeat, and God gives to us the miracle of breath in our lungs because God desperately desires to connect with mankind in ways that we cannot even fathom. I'll say this for a third and final time today. I believe that if we're not careful, mankind will risk becoming disconnected from our God because we fail to see the miracles that God performs for us that stare us right in the face every day. God is working to keep us connected with him, so much so that he gives us the miracle of life. Just one of the amazing miracles that God does for us, that if we're not careful, we might just miss. I'm talking about miracles that God performs today, and I realize that this is a very simple message. It's not a message that would win awards or really get much attention, but in its simplicity, there is a truth here. And that truth is that while we wait for what we might categorize as an amazing miracle, we should know that God performs amazing miracles for us every day, and we should not fail to always thank God for them. Amen. Put your hand to your chest and feel your heartbeat. Take a deep breath into your lungs and let it out. You just experienced two amazing miracles. And God just did those amazing miracles for you because he wants to connect with you over and over and over again. Thank God for the amazing miracles that he does for us every day, that if we're not careful, we just might miss. To the word of the Lord today, I say amen and amen. Amen. Will you pray with me right now?